Hi everyone, I'm so pumped again today. I've got John Cunningham from Cunningham's Property, who I've waited for about 6 weeks to get on video, and we're here in Liverpool Street at News Australia's office, and we're going to find out about his business. We're going to find out the strategies and tactics that make this one of the greatest businesses in Australia, and most interesting, we're talking about 5 people that have started and left the business in 22 years. This is a business that must have a strong culture and high productivity, because some of those numbers that John's spoken to me about are extraordinary, like minimum numbers, 350 per salesperson, and there's people there writing in excess of $1 million. John, welcome.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. John, there's 16,000 potential people watching this from all over Australia.
So no pressure, is that what you're
saying? No pressure. Okay, well, this is going to be a pretty raw interview. And John is very good at talking. I heard him speak at the Real Estate Institute once about auctions, and that's what definitely got me to think I've got to get this guy in. His content was outstanding on auctions and price guides. But today we're going to talk more about your business. It's been going for 22 years?
22 years, yeah. We started in 91.
Okay, for the people outside of Sydney that are watching, tell us the background to Cunningham's Property and your background in real estate.
Sure, look, I started off, property was in my blood, not from a family, but I was a frustrated architect at 8 years old, so I knew that property was going to be my direction. But like a lot of real estate agents, I didn't do so well at school. I didn't apply myself. I was easily distracted. And so after school I went to do a valuation course, so I'm a registered valuer. And from there I went into property management. It was funny, my first real estate job was, I was working 2 years in property management. I turned to my boss at the time and said, look, you've been through 3 salespeople in the last 2 years and not one of them sold a single property, and I don't understand. I said, I can do better than that. He said, okay, here's the book, off you go. So that was my start. I didn't know what I was doing, I had no idea. All I knew was that there were people and there were houses and you had to match the two together. My first month I sold 4 properties, then I figured out that I could make more money by listing my own properties. And I had all these people selling private sales, so I went up and rang them up and said, if I can add my commission to your price, are you happy for me to sell them? No. They said, sure. So I started selling those, and I thought, this is an interesting game. I think my first year in real estate I earned more than my father earned, and in fact, I think it was almost double. So it was an extraordinary experience, and off we went. So I got poached by a few agents over that time, and finally found a home which was really appropriate for me. I was there 10 years, and when I decided that I really wanted to do my own thing. Myself and my wife Anne's background's teaching. We both felt that this could be done so much better. You know, it was back in the days when vendors were treated like mushrooms, stick them in a box and dark in a cupboard and leave them alone. And we just took a very different approach. We started our business in 91 and haven't looked back. So it was, and I think it was mainly because singularly of our client focus.
Okay, and it's in the same suburb now as it was in 91?
Yep, it's actually next door to where we opened the business.
Okay.
So we've recently bought new premises, expanded the business, and it happens to be right next door to where we started.
John, I have different stories for people that open up businesses. Some people say it takes ages to make a profit and to get going, like years. Others say that it was pretty good from the outset. Which category did you fall into?
Look, we took off with a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication, and for us it just took off straight away. I think we took a totally different approach to the market. We created what we call a partnership plan with our clients, which was very much keeping them in the light rather than in the dark. And it was a very consultative approach, and I think that gave them a great experience. Now, that experience just then flourished throughout the marketplace. People heard about what we were doing, and back in those days there was no social media or internet, and it was just all word of mouth. So for us, it was off we went. A massive amount of dedication. Our kids were up there at school after hours. We used to put stick photos on brochures before anyone knew what a colour photo on a brochure was. We were doing floor plans of properties in 91 for all our properties. We were putting big laminated blow-up photographs, colour photographs on signboards in 1992, and creating a whole different vibe about the way that you marketed property. Right. And I think that momentum that innovation, all those things that we did, and the way that we treated our clients. We treated them with respect, we gave them a lot of information, we helped them make good decisions. And it's interesting, we were doing that back in '91, and this is what everyone's talking about today. To me it was just common sense.
Okay, so that's, I mean, a lot of the things you're talking about now are becoming accepted as it's normal business, but we're talking about something over 20 years ago, so this was like chalk and cheese versus others.
Absolutely. It was. We see that our business has been an evolution, but that was a revolution. And I remember getting up we joined the professionals when we started our business. It was just one of those things, a bit of a crutch thing. I spoke at a conference about a year after we joined, and the things that I was saying, people are going, "Oh my God, you're kidding! You actually ring your vendors every day.
Right.
You actually meet them on a regular basis. This is sort of unheard of stuff." We were doing weekly reports. We were doing pre-listing kits in 1991. And so all this stuff to us was just the way that we saw the business should be done. And it's obviously taken a long time for those things to catch on, but I think that's been the cornerstone of our business, is constant innovation.
So the business has evolved, and it hasn't just sort of skyrocketed in a short period of time. It's been gradually getting bigger and bigger. Today it's a very successful business. You've got how many salespeople there?
We've got 10 salespeople. We've got 5 in pods, or super teams, depending how you put them. One guy's got 3 people, and that's the area that we're focusing on now.
Right.
In terms of putting more salespeople, and it's actually building the pods,
right,
in a different way, and very much based on the way Marshall White do it in Melbourne.
Okay, so for our viewers, a pod is basically a salesperson with a couple of assistants.
Yeah,
is it?
we call it the lead agent,
yeah,
and then the associates. The associates can be either a buyers-based agent, so not a buyer's representative, but
right,
a person looking after the buyers,
yeah,
and then an administration person. That's the prime way of doing
okay,
it. And we've got Andrew and our team they're called the A team, and they're the good guys. There's 3 guys in the pod, which is quite interesting. Normally you'd have a bit of a female mix, but they're the testosterone guys. But it works brilliantly. The energy that goes with that, and the way that Andrew can perform.
right.
He focuses on what exactly he does best, and his 2 assistants, Ben and Liam, are helping out on that side.
So people watching this, a lot of them are writing $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. To them, the concept of a pod is that they've got to spend money and bring in an assistant or 2 assistants. I presume the lead agent funds those.
Correct.
Yeah. As a leader of that business, John, at what point do you encourage people to make the shift and invest in growing their business to be a pod?
Look, I think there's two components to that. Obviously, one's the GCI, what they're grossing, to make it that affordable, and we certainly assist them with their first assistant. We actually provide a quarter of their first year's salary for that assistant, and that's a sort of an enticement to get involved and do it. But it's more about the agent being ready to do it. Now, I believe an agent's not ready to do it unless they can do everything themselves.
Right.
A little bit different to what some people think, but unless you can fit into those shoes,
yep,
and an assistant is not someone who's there to do the stuff that you're already doing, there to assist you in making sure you're at your best. So if you're best at being with people, and you're best at face-to-face, and you're best on the phone, make sure you do that. But if you can't do all the other things that go with the administration, check the ads, set up the sales advice, do an MA, how on earth are you going to make sure that person that you're employing is able to do that?
Okay, so that's, to me, a very important observation and comment you made. Essentially what you're saying is, don't outsource something that you don't know about, because you still need to keep that person accountable and instruct
Yes.
them on how to do it.
Exactly. They have holidays, they get sick,
Yeah.
and then it's, what am I going to do? And so you've got to keep your hand in. It's like anything. People say to me, why do you've been in the industry 35 years, 36 years, why do you keep going along to conferences? And you never stop learning. As soon as you become the learned and think you know everything, everyone's just going to pass you by. So, the future's in the hands of the learner.
Okay, let me ask you, you've got an attraction business model. People know your business, people call your business. What has made it an attraction business model. You're independent, so you stand out.
Yep.
Has that been a strategy? What are the elements and enablers that make it an attraction business?
It's a good question, Tom, because we've always felt that that's what it needed to be. Your brand has to be an attraction brand, and your people have to be attraction people. But they've got to be synonymous. You know, we've tried to create a business where our people and our brand are synonymous, so they go hand in hand. They're not two separate entities; they're one. And part of that's what we call our community brand integration. Our brand is very much embedded in the community we work in. We do a lot of charitable works, as you know, and a lot of support for our community in a very visible way. So people see that, and that's an element that goes that we're just not your average real estate agent. We're actually giving back and participating, and that's a really important thing. Like on the weekend, we had our local surf club, Queenscliff, had a big carnival on the Saturday and a big swim for one of the young guys that died up in Queensland National Titles a couple of years ago. And they do a memorial swim every year. So we were down there on the beach with manning the barbecue, selling the bacon and eggs and sausage rolls and all that sort of stuff on the 2 days. And we had a roster system with the team going down there. We had the big marquee up, and it's quite visible, but we're integrated into that environment. So people see that as not just here's a check, hand over and thank you very much. We're involved in what goes on in that environment. And I think that's something that is a completely different way of looking at things. And a couple of our guys coach junior rugby club that we sponsor. So not only is our name on the jerseys and on the shed, those guys are out there on a Thursday night and a Sunday with those kids, coaching and getting them to the point. So
you're essentially saying to me is you're not buying this attraction model, you're earning it, because that's work.
It's work.
To do that, you've got to, that's work. Doing all those
Absolutely.
things, it's not writing a check out,
No.
that's part of it.
It's part of it, yeah. And so there's another big fair coming up. We're going to be down there, manning, helping the guys do stuff and physically doing things. So I think it's a bit of an earning, but it's an interesting thing. I really believe in reciprocity, where you put stuff in without thinking anything about what you're going to get back out of it, right? But as you know, it comes back.
Yeah.
So we've always been that way. It's been in our blood, and I think in terms of the culture of our business, we've tried to instill that in the guys and the people we bring into the business. And you mentioned earlier about very few people have left us. People love coming to work. You know, we've created a culture and an environment where people love coming to work. We've created a performance culture where people are happy to compete with each other, but also happy to help each other. So it's a very different environment to that dog-eat-dog real estate world.
Well, let's talk about that, because I know real estate officers that have had 5 people leave their office this year, right? So you've had 5 people leave in 22 years.
That's salespeople, yeah.
Salespeople.
Yeah.
If you had to put if we use the word culture, or we call it the personality of Cunningham's property, why is it that people like to come to work? Why is it that so few actually leave as a salesperson and join another office or move on? What's the reason, you think?
You know, it's interesting because of the people that have left us, only 2 people, actually only 1 person is still in the industry. One started her own business and it failed after 12 months, and other people have just left the industry. So for us, I think it's making sure we get the right people on in the first place. I've only ever taken on 1 person that's been in the industry before.
Right.
So I'd much prefer to bring people in and create what we need them to be, but it's got to be in them already. So we basically hire on attitude, and then we can train and get them to where we need them to be. So positive attitude is the number one thing. And I think there's a positivity about our environment. Leadership obviously is critical to that. I think was it you? Yeah, Chief Energy Officer up at Queensland. That came out of your talk, and that really resonated with me. And I told the team about that. I said, "Yeah, that's what you are. You're a Chief Energy Officer. If I'm not up here, everyone will be down."
Your role in the business now, John, is you're the CEO of that business. You run it. What's your main contribution? Do you do listings? Do you do sales?
It's a good question, because I've been transitioning. I talked about evolution earlier, and that's very much what my role has been as well. So I looked at myself as captain, coach, leading try scorer up until 2006. And in 2006, I made a decision that I needed to, actually probably about 2005, I really made the decision. I knew from about 2003 that I had to do something. It couldn't all be about me anymore. And I was holding people back. So I made a decision to exit myself out of sales over a period of time. I probably started that in 2004, 5, and by 7, I was out. And the
So
amazing...
you're no longer the leading try scorer?
Correct. I mean, I still have a lot of clients that come to me, and I farm that out to the appropriate people. I get involved to a certain extent. I recently sold my architect's home, and this is his second deal with us, and he dealt with another one of our agents, Georgie, who was, I considered him now her client. But I was involved, and it was critical that I was involved in that, and I actually enjoyed it. It was really good. Did the opens, and I get out there and do those opens every day just to show guys, this is, if you fall off the standards, we've got to bring up the standards. We're very strict on the standards, as strict as you can possibly be.
Yeah.
You can't be everywhere. But that was a great experience to go out there and do that again. I've actually just done another one on the weekend for an old client. This is the 6th property we've sold for him, and I had Andrew look after him. He said, "John, I'd love you to just keep an eye on it." So I went along to the first open, and I loved it too. I watched the energy of Andrew's team work that open, and my contribution was strong as well. Cut a long story short, we opened it on Saturday, exchanged yesterday, 200,000 more than we expected. A great experience, great testimony from the buyer and the seller on the same day. Interestingly enough, that involvement that I had really had very little to do with the outcome of the sale. Andrew did the whole thing, but it just gave the confidence to that seller. So I think I like to work on what I call the pointy end. The pointy end is the clients getting the guys to perform at their absolute peak.
Yeah.
And when I did that back in 2006-07, our business took off another level. And in fact, we had some guys in our team that doubled their turnover in that year. And it was due to me empowering them, I think is probably the best way to say, to perform at a higher level. It was also coincided when we joined the Real Estate Results Network, because that gave us a level of training and understanding that I'd already knew about, but it was so hard being a prophet in your own land. You try to teach the guys stuff. As soon as they get it from another angle, hear it from you or hear it from Michael, it's like, oh wow, and it's like, we've been talking about this for years. But it worked, and it took everyone to know. I was able to feed them the leads. They were actually able to do the best with those. They would actually do more than I could, because the amount of business I was getting, I couldn't service it properly.
Right.
And run the business. So the difference now is that I can run the business really well. I can mentor, nurture, empower the team, and lead the team by example to a certain extent to perform at very high levels.
Okay. I want to ask you, most of the people that are sitting watching this are people that aren't principals. They're actually sales agents. And there are sales agents here that are watching it that are writing 200 or 300 grand a year in gross commission income, which is pretty much not done in your office. You don't have that level. And there are people that are writing $500,000 to $1 million. In your time that you've been working in real estate, from your own experience as an agent selling, and also in hiring and all the seminars and all the people that you've attended and met, can you tell me what are the top 3 tips that you can give that you've seen common denominators of good salespeople?
Yep.
Have you been able to see?
Yeah, look, it's really interesting, because they are definitely common denominators. And obviously the first thing is good communicator. You've got to be able to apply a common sense to communication. You've got to meet someone, read that person, and know what to do next. If you go into autopilot, I've never seen a really autopilot agent become super successful. It's like any scripts and dialogues you can learn. You put them in the toolkit and you pull them out as you need them. So a great communicator who understands that every single person they meet has a purpose in their business. Until they get that part of it, they will never succeed. Now, James Tostervern's a great example of that. James just understands that probably better than anyone. And there's a lot of people, Matt Steinway and so on, they're out there. You know them all.
Yeah.
And that common denominator, as they see a person, they see that person as a purpose in their business. Now, whatever that purpose is, they've got to discover. So I see that good agents understand that we're in the discovery and the delivery business. In the middle, there's sort of what I call directory as well. So there's these 3 Ds. Once you discover what that person needs, you're able to direct them in the right direction, and then you're able to deliver. So once you get that understanding, your business will flourish, because every single person that you meet has a real estate need. And whether that's a referral to someone else, whether that's as a buyer, whether that's as a seller, as a hot buyer, cool seller, cold seller, whatever they may be, they have a purpose, and you've got to get them into your system.
Okay, so I'll just recap on that because I think it's pretty important. Discover,
Direct,
deliver.
and deliver.
In other language, or trying to explain that, what you're saying is find out what's going behind those eyes, what is that person in need of,
Yep.
then actually lead them to a solution, and then I suppose what I'm hearing you saying is provide an answer where they don't have to say, don't make me think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't make me
Yeah.
think, make it easy for me.
Exactly, because in that middle bit, to me, is where it's all about. Unless if you pour a discovery, you'll never get to the direction. The direction is the influencing, which is what we're in, the influencing business. So we're here to influence people to make good decisions. And that's as equal of importance with the seller as it is with the buyer. And that example that I gave you of that sale yesterday, where you've got a happy seller and a happy buyer, and a massive outcome, is that buyer had an experience, and it's what it comes down to. It all comes down to how I make that client feel, whether it's a buyer or a seller. How do they feel? Because how they feel will determine how much they're prepared to pay, how much they're prepared to listen, how much they're prepared to enable you to influence them. So we call it creating the environment where deals happen. And it comes down to all those three things being in place, and that middle bit, that influencing, spits out at the end as the experience. So we've found, and we get a lot of reviews from clients. It's almost unusual for us not to get one.
Right.
And what I love about them is reading about all the little things we do. Whether it be the associate that did this, whether it be the marketing person that did that, whether it be the phone call from me when we listed the property, welcoming them on board, or the phone call from me congratulating them on the sale, or a nurture call that was required in the middle there. All these things that were unexpected, all these things they got a surprise with. And we've developed this all around our what we call the Cunninghams way. You know, there's a lot of different ways. There's the McGrath way, there's the Marshall White way, there's all these ways. And our way is very much what we call connected moments. It's all these little moments you have with a client, all little touch points that you have. And each one is connected, and each one has as much meaning as the next. And when an agent, as we go back to the original question, I'm probably taking a bit of a tangent here, but
that's interesting.
But for a good agent's got to understand those things. You've got to understand that, okay, I'm a great communicator, and I'm a great influencer, but all these moments that I have to link up, and all those touch points spit out the end with a client, as you said earlier, what do you think I should do? You know, and that's the clear sign of a great agent.
I mean, to me, you're saying the little things in a business relationship are in fact the big things.
Correct.
That's
From little things, big things grow?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Can I ask you that thing about communication? Because we're still talking, we've talked about what's the most important. We've come up with communication. Is that learnt? Is that natural? Is that something that people will go off and train? What's your feeling? Are people born that way?
Look, there are some people that are born that way. Someone like Chris Gilmore, for example, he's a natural communicator. You know, the guy's just, that's what he does. Always has. And you can meet the guy at Harvey Norman or wherever he's the natural communicator. But do they have disciplines? Because unless you've got disciplines to go with it, you're not going to make the 100, 150, 200 calls that you need to make. You can be a great communicator, but you can be a lazy communicator. So in terms of the learnt bit of communication, if you've got disciplines, I think you can learn communication without doubt. Because you know that this is a numbers game. This is, you know, the more you do, the more you get. The more you learn, the more you earn. Whatever it may be, that is critical. The numbers have got to go through. So I think, again, attitude is the key. So if you get the right attitude with a person, it's a positivity, and then the disciplines, everything else can be taught.
All right. So communication, very important. Key point of thing here that John said is a great communicator, but you can be a great communicator, but no one knows about you because you're lazy and you're not talking to people. So it's not just about the thing, it's about having reach. And reaching a lot of people, which is discipline to talking to people. Other things that you've seen in the top people?
Yeah, look, I think that they understand the fact that this is numbers, and they also do very much time blocking. So without time blocking, you're going to become inefficient.
Right.
So a great salesperson is efficient with their time, and the more efficient they are, the more effective they are. So you could have someone who has a strike rate of 90%, for example, but they're lazy. When they're in the zone, they're fantastic, but they're lazy. And then you get that person that has a 50% strike rate, but he's disciplined. And that person will potentially win far more business over time because of the disciplines rather than necessarily their skills. Because frequency builds trust. So a good agent understands that frequency builds trust, but they also have to have very deep down an understanding of what their purpose is. Unless they understand why they're doing what they're doing, they can certainly tell people what they're going to do, but unless you understand why you're doing it, one, and are able to articulate that to your client, it's a very hollow relationship. And I think, again, the successful people understand that. And on the flip side, those people that sort of come up and can go like this and then go like that, because they're running on bravado, they're running on an energy that doesn't have any substance. And so the petrol runs out of the tank and there's nothing behind it. And particularly you see that happen when markets change. So these people that were here are gone. And that's why we love tough markets. Last year was a phenomenal year for us because we relished in it. Everyone was going, oh. And we thought, fantastic, rub our hands together and get in there and get stuck into it, because it's when the best agents come to the fore in tough markets.
Okay, so what we're going to do is, in the next session of our video, we're going to actually look in at some of those behaviours that helped you win market share, John, in a marketplace that had less sales, had less buyer energy, and what you did to win market share. We'll see you in the next video.